Today we are talking, or I am going to present on energy and environment. And if we talk about energy, energy is a fundamental entity of nature that is transformed between part of a system in the production of physical change within the system and usually regarded as the capacity for doing work. We have so many types and form of energy, which we have the kinetic energy, the potential energy, the mechanical energy, the chemical energy, to mention but few. And when we talk of the environment is defined as a sum total of all living and non-living elements and their effects that influence human life. And some of these living elements include animal, plant, forest, fishes, and birds. That is to mention but few. And when we talk about the non-living element or the abiotic element, which include water, land, sunlight, rocks, and air. And today we are going to talk about the relationship that energy and environment have. So in my previous video, I talked about the leakage between SDG 7, which is sustainable, affordable, and renewable energy for all, and SDG 13, which is climate action. And that climate action can be related to our environment. So today, our main focus is on energy and the environment. But before that, I would like to give a brief definition of clean energy. Clean energy comes from generational systems that do not produce any kind of pollution, notably greenhouse gases like CO2, carbon dioxide, which cause climate change. Therefore, clean energy in food development drive advance to conserve the environment and palliate the crisis with non-renewable fuel such as gas and oil. So the relationship between energy and economy was a prime concern in the 1970s. At that time, the linkage between energy and the environment did not receive much attention, or in other terms, much attention was not given to the relationship or the linkage between energy and environment, which I can say that SDG 7 and climate action. As environmental concern, such as acidic rain, ozone depletion, and global climate change become much major issues in the 1980s. So when this ozone depletion, acidic rain, and global climate change become more issues in the 1980s, which we will connect it to the SDG 13, which is Sustainable Development Goal 13, we talk about climate action. The linkage between energy utilization and the environment become more recognized. So energy utilization, which is affordable, renewable, and clean energy, which is Sustainable Development Goal 7, which I've talked about in my previous video. Since then, there has been increased attention on these connections as it has become more clear that energy production, energy transformation, energy transport, and uses all impact the earth environment, and that environmental impact are associated with thermal, chemical, and nuclear emission, which are necessary consequences of the process that provide benefit to humanity. So we have thermal, chemical, and nuclear emissions. So all these emissions contribute or help or provide benefit to humanity. The relationship between sustainable development and the uses of resources, particularly energy resource, is of great significance to society. Attaining sustainable development requires that sustainable energy resources be used and is assist if resources are used efficiently. Exerging methods are important since they are useful for improving efficiency of energy. So in my previous video, I talk about the differences between energy and exergy. So if you want to understand what I mean by exergy over here, you can refer to my previous video to get more understanding. The relationship between exergy and both energy and the environment make it clear that exergy is directly related to sustainable development. That these topics are connected can be seen relatively straightforwardly. For instance, the environmental impact of emission can be reduced by increasing the efficiency of resource utilization. As this measure help preserve resources, it is sometimes referred to as energy conservation, where this energy conservation is state that energy can neither be created nor destroyed but can be transferred from one form to another form. So a typical example is what happen in the hydropower generation when the energy move from potential to kinetic to mechanical energy. Then it then give the byproduct which is the electricity that we use to power our houses. Many suggest that mitigating the environment impact of energy resources utilization and achieving increased resource utilization efficiency are best addressed by considering energy. By extension, since these topics are critically element in achieving sustainable development, SDG also appear to provide the basis for developing comprehensive methodologies for sustainability. If you want to understand this SDG that I am using in my presentation, you can refer to my previous video and get the importance and the benefit of this SDG in energy production. But before that, I can give a brief definition of exergy to those who have not watched my previous video. Exergy is a measure of energy quantity, stating the maximum work that can be extracted from a system only interacting with its environment or the minimum work required to obtain a given state from environmental condition. That is what we mean by exergy. The exergy of an energy, form, or a substance is measures of its usefulness or quality or potential to cause change. The latter point suggests that exergy may be or provide the basis for an effective measure of the potential of a substance or energy from to impact the environment. Environmental concern. What is the environmental concern in this our study? Environmental problems, issues and concerns span a continuous growing rate of pollutant, hazard, economic ecosystem degradation, factors that affect areas ranging from local through regional to global. Some of these concerns arises from observable chronic effects on, for instance, human health, whilst others stem from actual or perceived environmental risks such as possible accidental release of hazardous materials. Many environmental issues are caused by or related to production, transformation and uses of energy. For example, 11 major areas of environmental concern in which energy play a significant role have been identified, namely major environmental accidents, water pollution, maritime pollution, land uses, and site impact, radiation and radioactive, solid waste disposal, hazardous, air pollutants, to mention but few. So all dis help in environmental pollution, but that is why we are advocating that it is good we all move to clean energy and leave the dirty sources of energy. Some of these dirty sources of energy are the fossil fuel that we are using in our car, which emit some gases which cause depletion in the ozone layer. But with the renewable energy, which is the clean source of energy, as I've defined in the beginning of the presentation, some of this renewable energy don't have any negative impact on the environment. Some example of renewable energy that are very affordable and renewable over here is the hydropower energy, the solar, the geothermal, just to mention but few. Whilst energy policy was concerned mainly with economic consideration in the 1970s and early 1980s, environmental impact control through clean fuels and energy technologies as well as energy efficiency have received increasing at ten tion over the last couple of decades. Environmental problems are of ten complex and constantly evolution. Generally po ten tial harmful substances has greatly advanced. Throughout the 1970s, most environmental analysis and legal instruments of control focus on conventional pollutants. So these are some of the conventional pollutants that are below over here. Recently, environmental effects have been extended to hazardous air pollutants, which are usually toxic chemical substances that are harmful in small areas or in small quantities, and dust and global significant pollutants such as carbon dioxide (CO2). Development in industrial process and system of ten lead to new environmental problems. For instance, major increase in recent decades in the transport of industrial goods and population by car have led to increase in road traffic, which is then have enlarged the at ten tion paid to effect and sources of some gases and volatile organic compound emission. The most international significant environmental issues are usually considered to be acidic precipitation, ozone depletion, and global climate change. In my next video, I'm going to take all these environmental issues, which are the acid precipitation, global climate change, ozone depletion. I'm going to take them one after the other and explain into details how they are causing issues and problems to the environment. But the first one that I will talk about will be global climate change, because I've talked about it in my previous video, which is SDG 7 climate action, which have a link with SDG, which is SDG 13 climate action, which have a link with SDG 7 affordable, renewable and modern energy. So the next presentation is going to be on global climate change. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and give your comments for further clarification. Thank you for your time. God bless.